So today we are going to focus this lecture on community ecology. But first of all, we must recap what is ecology. So it's the study of interactions between organisms and their environments. And I have this array of leaflets around the outside just to show the sheer scope that ecology covers, especially in terms of the scale from molecular through to the landscape level. Now, in terms of organisms, we're obviously talking about individual forms of life. And in terms of the environments, we have the abiotic, the non-living part of the environment, and the biotic, so that's the living part of the environment. And we're going to go into more detail about that a bit later on. So first of all, the abiotic factors, these non-living components, they include aspects such as water, wind, and solar radiation. And on the southern slope, you can see in the foreground, which is currently in sun, it's likely that that slope receives more solar radiation than the slope opposite, the northern facing. But in reverse, actually the northern slope is likely to be wetter than the southern slope because it will have water fed down through the entire catchment onto that point. And in the center of the photograph, you can see this rocky area, and that area is likely to be exposed to more salt water and potentially wind than these two grassland areas. And the key point is that the environmental conditions that are present in these three areas will suit some populations of some species, but not others. So what is a population? It's individuals of a single species living together in one geographical location at the same time. Now, when we talk about species, that is organisms which are able to interbreed to produce fertile offspring. And when we talk about the geographical area, the physical area in which these species live, that's called their habitat. So habitats such as forests or ponds or meadows are shared by many coexisting populations. And an assemblage of two or more of these populations is known as a community. And you've probably observed already from this diagrammatic representation of a grassland that some species are more associated with particular areas than others. So in the bottom of the diagram, you can see a click beetle species and a weevil species, and they're particularly associated with the root systems, in contrast to the carder bee, which is specifically associated with the flowers and the pollen. And then in the center, there is the orb web spider, which is actually using the architecture of the grassland itself. And these areas are sometimes called an ecological niche. They don't just have to be a physical area, they are specifically the conditions and the resources that those species need to survive. And they can include a range of temperatures, and they can include a temporal range as well, so whether the species is coming out at day or at night. And this means that ecologically similar species can actually coexist in the same community, especially if their niches are able to differ by one or two significant ways. And this is what we call resource partitioning. So this diagrammatic representation of a grassland shows clearly a range of sward structures. You've got some tussocked, thick areas of grass compared to some open, bare patches. And this is really important because it enables quite a large array of niches to be available for a range of species. Now, some species may need to reside in this open, bare patch where maybe the temperature will be different, the moisture will be different than inside this tussocked grassland area. Some species may actually need both of those areas as part of their niche. So for example, a wading bird species such as the lapwing will need the tussocked area to shelter from predators and also to nest. But they will need this open, bare patch to be able to probe for food, to be able to probe for invertebrates. Now, this niche separation issue is really well represented in the spider community. And even within 1 metre square of this particular grassland area, you will see ground-dwelling spiders, which will be hunting at that lower level. And at the same time, you'll see orb web spiders, and they will be up in the grassland in their web. So within a small area, you will have very similar ecological species, but are able to coexist in a small area due to this niche separation.